Hi there and welcome. On this video, you'll learn how to play Katan, presented by yours truly, a former Canadian National Championship finalist. This video will cover how to play the board game, which is also available to play online. Feel free to check out the links to those websites in the description below. Let's start with the basic concepts of gameplay and then get more into the intricacies of the game. The game is played with either 3 or 4 players. You'll start by creating the game board frame. These outer pieces connect by matching these small numbers at each end. The next is to shovel the 19 terrain hexes and place them inside the board frame. There is a recommended beginner setup that can be found in page 3 of the official rules. Next, you'll take the 18 numbered tokens. These tokens have letters on the back. Put the tokens in letter order, then place them on the board. You'll start in the upper left corner of the board with the A token, then with the B next, so on and so forth. Continue putting the tokens on each hex, circling the outside hexes and moving inward. The desert hex does not get a numbered token. Place the rubber piece on the hex and you are now ready to play. Each player selects a color of game piece each for the game. The player pieces include 5 settlements, 4 cities, and 15 roads. Each player can receive a building cost card to reference throughout the game. Separate the resource cards into 5 piles: wood, brick, or stone, wheat or grain, and sheep. Go ahead and shuffle the development cards and place them face down, right beside the largest army and longest road cards. Now, the players will get to start the game with 2 settlements and 2 roads on the board. A settlement is placed on the points of the hexes and roads are placed between points. To determine who starts, all players can simply roll both dices to see who has the highest number. Once the first player has been determined, you do the same for the second, third, and fourth position. For the second placements, it's the reverse order this time. The players will initially receive resource cards for the resources used by the surrounding hexes of your second placement. During the game itself, you collect the resource if the number on your respective hexes that you have settled on has been rolled. Each player's cards are face up for you to see in an actual game, but you shall keep your cards hidden from other players. The object of the game is to be the first player with 10 victory points. Victory points are received by building cities and settlements and having the largest army or longest road, and by getting victory point development cards. Players will use resource cards received throughout the game to build towards getting 10 victory points. A turn consists of 3 phases. The first phase is resource production. The second is trade phase, with the third being the build phase. The total amount rolled is found on the board. Any player with a settlement or city touching the hex for the number rolled will receive corresponding resource cards. Each settlement placed on a hex with that rolled number gets a resource card. Compared to a settlement which only receives 1 resource card if that number is rolled, each city gets 2 resource cards. After the resource production phase is complete, the trade phase begins. During the trade phase, players have the option to resource cards from other players through bartering. Resource cards can be traded between players known as a domestic trade. Trades can be proposed by any player during their turn, and counter offers can be made as well. The player whose turn it is has to be part of the trade. A player can also trade 4 similar resource cards for any 1 resource card from the stockpiles across the border. Example, you can trade 4 brick cards for 1 sheep card. There are harbors, also called ports, that offer more favorable trade-in rates. Players with a settlement or city on a harbor or port can trade in 3 similar resource cards for any 1 resource card, only if the harbor/port is a 3-to-1 port. You can also get 2-to-1 rates on a specific resource port here. After the trade phase comes the build phase. The player whose turn it is can build using resource cards. According to the building cost card, a player can use a wood and a brick card to build a road. A wood, brick, wheat, and sheep card are needed to build a settlement. Each settlement a player has on the board is worth 1 victory point. You can only build settlements 2 roads apart from any other settlement, meaning you can't build a settlement if you're only 1 road piece away from any of your opponent's settlements as well as your own. A settlement can be upgraded to a city with 2 wheat cards and 3 ore cards. Each city a player has on the board is worth 2 victory points. Your 1-point settlement now turns into a 2-point city. A development card can be purchased with a wheat, sheep, and ore card. Development cards will be explained in more detail later. Once a player finishes making any trades or builds, the dice move clockwise to the next player. When a 7 is rolled, the robber is activated first. Any player with 8 or more resource cards loses half their cards. If you hold 7 cards or under, you are safe from throwing half your resource cards when a 7 rolls. The numbers are rounded down when a 7 rolls. Example, if you have 9 cards in your hand and a 7 is rolled, you simply need to throw away 4 cards. If you had 11 cards in your hand and a 7 was rolled, you only need to throw away 5 cards. Then the player that rolled the 7 will move the robber piece on the board to a new hex of their choosing. White moves the robber to a sheep hex with the number 3 token. When the robber is on a numbered hex, that hex will not produce any resources. If a 3 were to be rolled, no one on that specific hex collects that resource. Finally, we'll get to steal 1 resource card from an opponent who has a settlement or a city adjacent to the hex. We'll pick random card from the opponent he chooses to steal from. White will then get to trade and build after stealing the resource card if they want to. There are 3 different types of development cards that can be bought throughout the game. At any time during a player's turn, that player can play 1 development card, as long as the card being played wasn't bought on the same turn. When a knight card is played, the player will move the robber to a new hex, and the player will steal 1 resource card from an opponent who has a settlement or a city adjacent to the hex with the robber. The knight card will stay face up in front of the player who played it. There are 3 different progress cards. Follow the description on the progress card. When played here, blue plays the Year of Plenty progress card and gets any 2 resource cards from the bank. A victory point card is kept by the player and can be used towards winning the game. You do not reveal victory point cards. The best strategy is to keep it a secret and not advise the other players that you have 1 or more victory points in your hand. During the game, the first player to play 3 knight cards is awarded the special largest army card that is worth 2 victory points. If a player creates a largest army, the largest army card is given to that player. Another player may steal the largest army if they have 1 more knight than the previous largest army card holder. Example, if a player has the largest army with 3 knights, another player must have played 4 knights in order to claim the largest army. The first player to build a continuous road with at least 5 road pieces is awarded the special longest road card that is worth 2 victory points. If a player creates a longer road, the longest road card is given to that player. Again, same concept as the largest army, the opponent will need to build a road longer than the opponent who has claimed the longest road. If the player with the longest road has 5 consecutive roads placed together, an opponent must build a road with 6 road pieces in order to claim the longest road card and earn the longest road from the other player. Once a player has at least 10 victory points on their turn, the player can win the game. White builds 2 roads to create the new longest road in the game. Players can only build up to the amount of pieces they have. Development cards can never be traded. A domestic trade cannot be made with similar resource cards. If a settlement or city is built along another player's longest road, the road is broken, meaning only the player with the placed settlement can build roads. The opponent cannot continue building his road as they are now cut off. The longest road card goes to the new player with the longest road of at least 5 road pieces. If a resource card pile runs low and multiple players are owned that resource, no player gets the resource card. The game setup can be randomized by placing the number of tokens at random. The harbors, also called ports, can be randomized by placing the harbor tokens over the border harbors. That wraps up how to play the Settlers of Catan. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and get more game tutorials and gameplay strategies by subscribing to my channel, Katan King. Thanks for watching, and until the next episode.